experience, man. Like when I started shearing, my first year, I was like, I wanted to be faster than Rod Sutton. I was like, I'm going to beat Rod Sutton, and yeah.
Yeah.
And I learned very quickly that it doesn't work like that. And I think sometimes you get a lot of people and they'll come to you and they have these big goals. And I think the thing is, it's easy to have a big goal. It's what is in between. That's where people fall down a lot. And everyone wants to break a world record, man. Everyone wants to be the world champion. But do they want to do the stuff in between? I think that's very, very different. And I think being lucky enough to be around like the likes of Stacey and Daniel McIntyre and just even a lot of my coaching mentors I've run into, you can just see they definitely do have something different, eh? I remember once I got told, it was one of our wool handlers, she was an ex-partner of Rodney Sutton, and what Rod said or what came up was that if you want to do something that's, the next level, it's incredibly selfish. Every single part of your life has to be dedicated to that one sole purpose. And if you're not prepared to do that, you're not going to fail. You're not going to succeed. And a lot of people will be like, yeah, that's what I want. Get a month or two in, and they realize, shit, actually, this is quite possibly not what I want. It's the ones that can get beat up a million times and come back. The other ones that generally do it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think anyone is pretty capable. It's just you just got to figure out what is stopping you along the way, and then work around it.
Yeah. It was like 4 years ago. I remember calling up Dwayne Black to say, like, I was one of those young guys that thought I was going to break the records or do one, but I also recognised that deep down I didn't believe I could. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I was kind of compensating for something, like a belief that I should be that good, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I also had a lot of, one thing I recognize now, I was thinking very short term. Like if I didn't do it in 8 months, I wasn't going to do it. It wasn't like and that sort of leads into something that you messaged me about when we were talking about this interview, was the 4-year, what was it, championship program?
Just the 4-year plan, man.
Yeah.
Like
what does that involve?
If you're looking at Olympian, they got 4 years to train for that one. It might be a week or just a one day. And Olympians at the pinnacle of the sport, man. I've seen. I haven't trained, but I've seen the journey of Olympic weightlifter, and she was pretty awesome. Like she was Australia's best weightlifter for over 10 years in her weight grade, and this is her year that she was finally going to make the Olympics. So she'd been training for 10 years, best weightlifter in her category for 10 years. 3 months before the qualifying for the Olympic Games, she hurt her back, and she missed out by 1 kilo, man. Like she trained her whole entire life for this one event, and just to miss out by 1 kilo, that's like, I guess equivalent would be missing out on a record by 1 sheep, like that's all it is, man. And the amount of dedication and time she put into that was phenomenal. And I sort of thought, like, does your average person, going back to what you said before, does your average person actually have that tenacity and that willpower to carry on, and then to get 1 kilo close and then to go again? Now it's a 12-year plan. And like you look at, I think Matt Luxton actually touched on this the other night on Dwayne Black's, and it was sort of saying like the minimum requirements, probably what he thinks for a shearer, is at least a year to prepare for a record. And it's 100% true, man. Like most people are like, I can just train for 3 months and I'll be fit, but you need a whole plan. So the longer you got, the better you got. I was lucky enough to actually, one of my mentors was a guy named Joseph Coyne. He was the head strength and conditioning coach for the Warriors, the Auckland Warriors for a while. And then he got scouted by the Chinese Olympic team, which was pretty cool. And he was talking about just the cycles of training that they go through for the whole 4 years. And like you got your first year as like a base training, you're just building up your base. Next year, you're sort of improving that a little bit. The third year, you're like trying to fine tune, making sure you're on the right path. And that last year is just basically a peak towards well, first of all, qualifying, and then actually achieving your best of your best. And you've been planning that for 4 years, and it's doing that. You can be very fine-tuned. I think you could take someone who is, a pretty good shearer. Let's say they're like one of the top of their gangs now, and they want to break a world record. Like, they got it in their head, and they have enough ego. They have enough ego to believe they're good enough. If they were prepared to put in 4 years, then there's no telling what they could do, man. Sort of Lou Brown, I think he did a bit of training with us about 5 years ago. So that's been a 5-year process sort of for him. Like, they had a record attempt fall over, and then, he's gone away, done some other work on himself, a lot of self-awareness work actually, which was pretty cool. And then, he's put in the training again, and now he's got the result, so
it's funny you mentioned Lou, because that's actually, he's one of the reasons that I did the podcast, because I kept seeing all these videos on Facebook saying he was meditating or practicing mindfulness, and I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, how's he practicing it? Is that 10 minutes a day, or is he meditating on top of an hour for 2 hours every weekend? Like, I want to know what it is, and
man,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
So,
but let's say, what was that?
When I heard that, I was like, that's awesome, because that's the standard that it's going to now, man. Like, the power of that is pretty incredible. So
so when you so say you see a shearer for the first time, and just say he's your average typical shearer, probably shearing like 8 to 10 years, that wants to do a record but hasn't done any training. Is there some, like, I think it's probably going to be some obvious weaknesses and strengths in his body, like some movement patterns and some faulty movement patterns that you probably know. What are some of the key areas you'd probably know instinctively that would be wrong with him or
definitely, her? Like, especially doing the Shear Easy courses lately, I guess, man, like, we're in front of a lot of people, and you get to test a lot of stuff out. And basically, the number one thing, most people are extremely weak through the hips. A lot of instability, and the back's taking basically all of the work. You see a lot of people with bad knees or bad hips, and bad backs, and they don't realize it's probably weakness in the glutes and your core as well. And also, shearers, like, we're very, very strong in certain areas, but then outside of that, we're pretty weak, eh? So make a big difference, man.
Right.
I guess when I started to learn a lot about this stuff, like, I used to have like a lot of bad back issues. And it took me a long time to figure out what it was. And I went and seen a physio. He was the physio for the Australian cricket team, actually. And he'd done a muscle test on my legs. And my left leg was...
a biopsy? Or just...
No, basically, he had a pressure plate. So he just tested the strength of each leg. It was like a little pressure plate. And he tested the left leg strength versus the right leg strength. And I had a 12% difference on my left. And he said pretty much anything more than 5% is really, really bad. And I was like, it took me a long time to start like going through my head and thinking about why that was. And I started to realize pretty much 90% of the shearers I've seen were in a similar position. Started piecing it together, and most right-handed shearers, and this is most, like, we'll always find people that are a bit different, but most right-handed shearers will put most of their weight on their front foot, on their left foot, most of the day. So their left leg in general is a lot stronger than the right. If you're a lot stronger on one side, the back's got to compensate somewhere, and then you get all sorts of imbalance issues, and that's generally what can cause a bit of a difference. And I guess weakness from left to right is a big problem, because that's where the injuries come, and that's where you can get an imbalance, and something's got to give at some point, basically.
I've that's exactly been my experience. If I look in the mirror, I can see my left leg is physically bigger than my right leg. Like, you can actually see it. So imagine there'd be, and like, this is just again from my own body, like I get a lot of tightness across the chest and shoulders. Is that also common?
Yeah, 100%, man. Or like, if you think about it, when you're sort of shearing, if I could get a bit more, but you're sort of always in this position. So most of the day you're using that closed position and you're using your chest and your shoulders a lot. And in this benched over position, and it's similar to like I guess someone who sits at a desk all day. You know, you're pretty much hunched over in these positions, so everything through here is going to get really tight. So I guess to counteract that, you just got to open up, you know, through your thoracic spine, and that'll make a big difference as well. And a lot of shearers are upper trap dominant, so you're going to drag your sheet like that rather than lower down. And I think that could save a lot of back issues, man, is opening up the thoracic spine and strengthening the mid and upper back would make a big difference.
Yep.
What so shearer's lower back, and it looks like shark fins, eh? There's a lot of muscle there. But it's because it's doing all the work, you know. So.
Overcompensating.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So going back to a 4-year plan, so if you've got a shearer walking or coming to you in that kind of state, like again, going back to my own experience, thinking I was going to do a record, my idea was I was just going to hit the gym hard for 8 months. Is that the advice you would give someone, or would you start somewhere else?
If you're looking at Instagram, YouTube, whatever, that's what you think you need to do. In general, man, and in my experience with not only shearers but people in general, doing that, you're going to eventually burn out and break. So that's why I think the 4-year approach is a lot better. Even like 12 months, you got plenty of time, but the longer you can give yourself, the better. And for a start, it'd be just basically building the biggest base you possibly can. Fill in the holes, get your glutes strong, get your hips nice and stable, get a lot of balance left to right. Get your shoulders going. Also use weight training so that you can increase your mobility. Because a lot of people think, if I go lift weights, I'm going to get, you know, bulky and I won't be able to move. But if you do it correctly, it can actually open you up a lot too. So spending 12 months and actually learning how to train correctly would be massive, man. It'd make a huge difference. And you just find like strength and stability is a huge one. Like, you're basically balancing all day long in different positions, and the stronger you can get in those positions, but also the stronger you can get in the positions that are going to help keep those postures and unlock your body is going to make a huge difference over the long period of time, man. Pretty much, I guess, what I would recommend, even if you're a record shearer or if you're just an average shearer, is just longevity, man. You just want to be doing it for as long as you can. There's a lot of good shearers out there, and I think it's the same with a lot of good athletes. You see those guys in high school who were not the best, most talented guys, but they just somehow kept at it, and then all of a sudden they're playing high-level sports, you know? Yeah, they've just been able to keep their bodies and being able to keep practicing their skill for a lot longer, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, right. So what kind of, like, this shearer, the hypothetical shearer that comes in, what kind of base, or how would you assess the guy and like maybe get a starting point so you got an idea of where he's at? What sort of tests would you go through, and like would you take heart rate and those sorts of things? To get that level of fitness.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess going from a normal, average shearer, like your base heart rate would definitely be something that you could take, just purely because, like, if they had a super high heart rate at rest, it's definitely something they're going to need to work on, and it's just data in front of their face. Like I think I remember when I was shearing, my heart rate was down around 45 to 50 beats per minute at rest.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
which is pretty good. And like at the moment, I'm training a lot, and my heart rate was around about 60 beats per minute. I was like, I must have been fitter when I was shearing, so I've been working on lowering that. Yeah, but it's probably what I would do, man, first is just assess, like, do they have any pain? What's causing the pain? And then that's the first thing we want to fix, man. If I was to talk about like building to a peak, so you want your biggest base possible. So what you want to do first is make sure there's no weakness or holes. So identify first, is there any pain? If there is, what's causing it? And then identify what we need to fix it. And then from there, we work on your lifestyle as well, which should probably almost be the base. But your lifestyle comes first, then you build your strength training, your programs, then you build your conditioning, or you build your skills and technique, and then your conditioning, and that's the peak of the pyramid, man. But that base should always be the start. So, yeah.
Like, I've got something to add to that. I watched a YouTube video recently that kind of blew my mind a bit, but it had that Callie Starrett on there. Do you know him? Yeah, and he said something like the human body is not supposed to be in pain, which is, it's like, when you really think about it, it's like it's just normal for my shoulder to be a bit tight when I wake up in the morning and maybe take a while for my knees to get going. Like, and then he's going like, that's not, like, if you got any niggling pain, that's something you got to deal with. And it was pretty, it's just sounds common sense, but it's also like, you can take that into your training as well, I think, where when I was running, my knees were hurting, and maybe my lungs were hurting a bit as well. And I've just since then just kind of backed off and watched, like, I take my heart rate variability, and that's assessing my training load, but saying my injury risk, because I'm training longer but not as intense, has just dropped. Like, my risk of injuring myself leading up to my event has just plummeted, which is, like, you don't, especially if you're relying on shearing to feed your family, you don't want to injure yourself, do you?
100%. And I think that's, like, Kelly's 100% right, man. Like, you look at the mindset of a shearer too, though. Like, we're bred to be pretty tough. If you're in pain, it's just suck it up and keep going. And the pain, people will ignore it until all of a sudden you can't walk. Yeah. And that's where it goes wrong. And like, I did it myself time and time again when I was sharing. I've done it with my training, and I think I've broken myself enough times to realize that shit, this ain't the way to do it. And heart rate variability is pretty good, man. Like, it's a good way to train, and you probably realize you don't actually have to train super hard to actually get fitter. It's about training smarter, man. That's
it's. Do you want to explain heart rate variability for anyone listening?
Yeah,
so they understand what it is.
Yeah, heart rate variability, like, for my basic understanding of it, is basically like, so you got a base level heart rate, that is your normal resting heart rate, and then so if your body's under stress, that's going to go up. So say you've done a really, really hard training session, and then the next day your heart rate is, say, 10 beats higher than what it normally is. That means you got this variability range, and there's a little bit, sometimes it's good to be up, sometimes it's good to be a little bit lower, and there's a range in between. But if it's continuously trending up, then at some point, you're increasing your risk of injury. And just because the amount of stress that your body is under, your body's not recovering from it. And the biggest secret to training is you're only going to get the benefits of what you can recover from. And a lot of people, I guess, will train and train, thinking, I'll do more training, I'll go harder, basically like trying to run through a wall, without realizing that it's actually when you rest and recover that you get the results. So, you remember all those, I guess one of my biggest lessons, when we were young, you're playing sports and you got all these old fellas and they're like, wait till you're my age, boy. Sort of, you look at them and you're like, they're doing it really easy, they're not really trying, and you're like, whatever, old fella, you don't know. When you become that old fella and you realize, okay, they knew what they were talking about. It's just be smarter, look after your body, and I guess, like, everybody these days especially is in such a hurry. Like, if you're going to break a world record, look at what it actually is. It's a world record, it's nothing to be laughed at, especially at the level that it's at now. And if you're giving yourself 6 months to prepare for it, you're probably going to sell yourself short, It's going to take a long time to get that fitness, and this stuff's going to come up along the way. Like, if you got 6 months and your training's good, but then let's say your kids are sick for a couple of weeks and it knocks you out or something like that. There's a lot of variables over that time, and I remember having a good chat with Stace actually about one of his first record attempts he failed. It was pretty cool because, like, I think it was about 3 or 4 months out, he injured his back. So he couldn't train, he couldn't really share. And then they wanted him to basically pull out, but
Yep.
he's like, no, I'm going to do it. And then by the end of it, he had lost 8 of his fingernails. He had tunnel vision. Like, he was that dehydrated. He was pretty close to dying.
Yeah.
But he's like, I would just never give up. And then he went away for that whole next year and actually got it right. And he beat the record by about 30 or so sheep, I think. But
Yeah.
like, that's the stuff that can come up, And if you're trying to squeeze, if you've got a longer period of time, you're more likely to give yourself the time needed to improve rather than try to force it,
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So when it comes to, like with something like heart rate variability, like I measure mine every morning at about between 6 and 7 a.m. But I've noticed even, like I run 4 days a week, but I've started doing yoga more or less every day, and an hour of yoga will actually throw my recovery off.
Okay.
So it doesn't take not much.
Yeah.
Well, I'll adapt to it. Like if I keep doing yoga, my body's obviously adapting. So it's not much. It won't throw me like way out of whack, like not like a hard run will, but it'll. So the app I use gives you recovery points out of 10 and gives you a baseline and a range that you want to stay within. You don't want to, if you go too far out of the range, your risk of injury is pretty high and your risk of getting sick and run down if you're always high. Yep. But if you drop too low, you're not adapting. Like you're not training enough. So sure. So it's pretty good. It gives you a lot of good info and it calculates your VO2 max and all that sort of thing, the lactate threshold.
Yep.
But it just amazed me by how little exercise it took to, skew the numbers one way or another. Or the other variable is sleep. Like if I have a bad night's sleep, that'll throw the numbers off as well. And it's like, I'm actually really curious to see what happens to the numbers when I do go back to work.
Yeah.
Because I remember being like, for the 8 years I shore full time, I just remember being dog tired all the time. You know what I mean? And it's like, and we didn't have this information then. Like it wasn't that easy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for someone who's like looking to get better recovery, what are sort of some tips that they can do? What's like some recovery that shearers could do as a starting point? Because I think before they even start training, just in my opinion, they should probably get their recovery routine on point because they're already exercising. Like if yoga's throwing me off, they're already exercising a lot harder than that every day. Yeah, the recovery should almost be more important. Yeah, so what's some things some guys can do? That
you just touched on it, man. Number one is sleep. Get your sleep sorted. If you're not getting 8 hours, you're definitely selling yourself short. It's our greatest recovery tool we've got. Like it allows the brain to shut down. It allows the body to start recovering. You got things, your growth hormone and all of that sort of stuff. So all the hormones that actually help you recover and actually adapt, most of them are produced while you're sleeping. So it's definitely the number one recovery tool. And going around running the Shear Easy camps, man, most people aren't eating anywhere near enough. Like my gym is an all-female gym. So, and basically they come and train for an hour, lift some weights. Most of them sit at a desk all day. Most of our 50 to 60 kilo girls are eating more than these 80 to 90 kilo shearers. So, and that's just a general, of course, but in general, I'd say people are eating nowhere near enough. Just getting your veggie intake, so aiming for 6 cups of veggies a day and getting some decent protein in, that would make a big difference, man. And and the other one would just be like minimizing things like all your processed foods and stuff like that. And if you got them in point, man, like I guess people go down the line of like what supplements, what techniques and what stuff. But if you don't have your food and your sleep and play first, well, everything else is like a sticky plaster, man. So
back to the foundation, isn't it?
Just the basics, man. Yeah, exactly. And like everyone wants the miracle thing, when we get down to it, man, it's the basics, with training, it's get strong and stable, get very, very fit and just recover. So And if you're not sleeping enough, if you're not getting enough food or the quality of food you need, it's gonna make a huge difference, man. Like I'm actually doing a burpee world record in about 8 weeks. So
Yeah, yep, I saw
yeah,
that.
so I've got I got to do 900 burpees in an hour, which is pretty hectic. And most of my training's on point. Like I think my training's exactly where it needs to be. And then I
Yep.
was like, I'm still waking up a little bit tired. And I was like, oh, I think I better actually get my sleep on point. So I've started tracking my sleep this week. Last week I only got 6 hours sleep. I'm like, okay, that's why you're tired, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so that's my first port of call at the moment to, like, without even training any harder, man. If I just get my sleep right, I'm going to perform better, you know? So
Yeah.
I guess
So how do you track your sleep?
there's a couple of apps out there. It's this is called Sleep Cycle, the one I use.
Yep.
And like an app's an app. It's only a guide, but what it does is basically listens for your movements, and it will tell you whether you're awake or asleep during the night, and it just tells you how long you're asleep for, sort of thing. The good thing too about it, it sort of goes with your sleep cycle. So every 90 minutes, you got a different sleep cycle. So
Yep.
it'll actually wake you up at the time where part of that sleep cycle you're actually more awake. So it's not like shaking you up.
Yeah.
And wake up a
Yeah.
bit more refreshed, which is pretty handy as well. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
something I've noticed. Like I've got the optimum time for me to wake up is between 5 and 6,
yeah,
which I never do it. But if I wake up after 7, like I'm just groggy as hell, and I
yeah,
understand
you're having more sleep, hey
that.
man.
Yeah,
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 it's in the middle of the sleep cycle, not at the end. So I must end my sleep cycle around 5:30,
yeah.
and
Started again.
start it again.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, it's something I'm definitely aware of, but it's not something I'm prepared to put into action just yet.
Yeah. I think the other one too, man, and like this is with all my clients, doesn't matter who they are, the more consistent you are, the better.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling to get your 8 hours sleep, is it because one day you get up at 5? Is it the next day you're getting up at 6? Or is it one night you're going to bed at 8, one night you're going to bed at 10, you know?
Yeah.
The best way is just like have the exact same time every single day. Go to sleep 8 hours before that, you know, and just be consistent, because humans are pretty simple, man. If we're consistent, we get consistent results, you know. So some people struggle to get to sleep. Like you can use, if you're a sort of person that struggles to get to sleep, sometimes like eating a big carb meal, so like sweet potato and stuff like that at nighttime. I have chocolate because I like chocolate. But that carbs actually helps with the hormones that help you sleep at nighttime. So it can actually get you a deeper sleep and make you quite sleepy. Magnesium is another good one at nighttime, and just something as simple as a hot bath, man. So like a hot bath with some bath salts, you know, a nice big drink of water and all of that sort of stuff will just knock you out. And that's like, once you've got that stuff in place, that's the stuff that's going to help with your recovery as well. Just little routines here and there make a huge difference, eh?
Yeah. So what do you know? Actually, something that came up just before, because this is going to be big for the shearing industry, and Matt Luxton did touch on it, or was asked a question about beers. How many beers a week can you have? But there's actually a strong relationship with alcohol and sleep, especially REM sleep. It completely shuts it down. So it's worth knowing that like a lot of people, you go and get pissed basically, and then you go to sleep and you wake up and you have really vivid dreams. And that's because the alcohol's pushed all your REM sleep right to the end of your sleep cycle. And it's fascinating that alcoholics can, like, the need for REM sleep is so deep that alcoholics will actually start literally hallucinating. They'll be having REM sleep while they're awake.
Yeah, wow.
It was pretty powerful how much your body actually needs it. And so it's almost like if you're going to drink, you probably want to do it like once a week or once a fortnight, or do it all at once, so you're not affecting, like, one beer a night maybe kind of stuffing you up all week. as opposed to doing it all at once. But you also had a post a while ago that I really liked, and you talked about, it was kind of like about social drinking and some suggestions for guys. Like, I think your suggestion was maybe you have, like, if you're a social drinker, maybe you got to find a different social group, and maybe you should be going to the sauna or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, do you want to touch on that a bit? Like,
Yeah, man.
finding other things to do.
Yeah, like I sort of I like to go down the path. Well, I've sort of over time, I guess, like training and nutrition, it's all pretty similar to a point, but it's getting people to actually do stuff that makes a difference. So
Yeah.
it sort of led me down the route of I've read a couple of good books on habits. One was The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and what it comes down to is you sort of got a habit loop. So you got a cue, you got a routine, and then you got a reward. And basically, like your cues and your routines are always your cue and your reward are pretty much always going to stay the same. It's the routine that you have to change if you want to change, of course. So, for example, like your cue might be, we finished work. My reward is I get to relax now. So I want to relax. You know, you've had a big day at work. You want to relax. So your general routine is like, all right, let's have a couple of beers, you know. So have those beers. That'll help you chill out and help you relax. But if you really think about it, what you're actually trying to do, you don't necessarily want the beer. You want the relaxing or the social aspect of it. So what you can do is, like, you know, if you got someone in your team who is a bit more health conscious and wants to be a bit better, I guess, you can just say to them, hey, man, let's why don't we just go do some yoga or do a stretch? We can have some smoothies and stuff, or, you know, like, it's just different routine, but you're getting the same reward. You know, you're still getting that relaxation, you're still getting that socialness, but you're not doing something that's a negative routine. You're getting a positive routine, and it's amazing how much of a difference it makes, man. Like, a good example, like, that I started to see this working is one of my clients. He just basically binged eat, and he just couldn't figure out why he was doing it, man. And like, the cool thing about it was, like, I was like, okay, every time you binge eat, I just want you to sit down for 5 minutes before you do it and figure out why you're doing it. And the next day he comes in and he's like, shit, man, that was the most confronting thing I've ever done. And it was, and literally, like, every day about 3 o'clock, he'd go off to the vending machine. And what he worked out, it wasn't that he wanted to go to the vending machine or eat the food. He was just avoiding the responsibility of finishing his work for the day. And because that was quite painful, knowing that he was avoiding it, he was using food to give himself a pleasurable experience so that he didn't have to deal with it. And the funny thing is, man, he's like, shit, I can't do that anymore. And like, he started taking that responsibility. 3 months later, he got a massive promotion, eh? So yeah, it was pretty
right.
hectic. Yeah, and like, and that's why you know, like, people who struggle with like getting healthy or weight loss and stuff, man, it's never the food. It's always that underlying cause. And you like we're talking about before we started, man, that self-awareness is absolutely massive. And you go back to, I guess, like, guys that done records or stuff that's fallen apart, there'll be something like that that's in there, you know. And for me, just for this burpee record, the reason I'm doing it is I purely just want to experience what goes on in your head while you're doing it. And there's at times, man, where I'm just like, fuck, I just want to go and get a burger, you know, and just have a bit of a blowout. And I'm like, but then I'm like, shit, I've got this thing, so I have to, that's stopping me. Like, the pain of actually failing the record is worse than the pain of not having that burger, you know. So it's it's really interesting, man. And that all comes back to, like, you got to ask yourself some hard questions, and if you're not aware, it's the things that you don't actually see, I guess, that's the things that will stop you in the long term.
Yeah. Do you find that most people know what, I suppose, their compulsive habits are or their destructive habits are, but they don't necessarily know how to deal with them, or they sort of push them to the side, like, that's just me and that's just the way I am?
I think so, man. Yeah. Like, people will almost use that as their excuse. It's like, I've got bad genetics, or, you know, it's just the way it is. My life's stressful, and really, like, if you want to make a change, you got to deal with that shit, and it's hard, man, and it's confronting. And unless you do deal with it, it's going to keep coming up and smack you in the face all the time. So
I get it with like, because I've been running, and I was running pretty let's just say, psychopathically for the first couple of months.
Yeah.
And I've been running since January, so it's not that long. But I started doing, in a search for like a better group of people. I started doing the park runs, which are a 5K run every Saturday.
Yeah.
And but my goal is to run a marathon, not a 5K. And this is like a little ego race every Saturday. And I started I was running 5K. My best time was 21:52, and I ran it. It was my fourth run, and I felt pumped about it. And I was like, I came in fourth place, and moving up the ranks and everything. I was thinking, fuck, I can't wait. Can I do it again next week? And then I was thinking, hang on, like again, going back to injury risk was super high because I was pumping all the way. And then Mondays I do my long run, and I was still sore. Yeah. I'm supposed to be going into the longest run of the week, and I was still sore. I was like, oh, this is just complete. Like, I was trying to do something positive, but my ego was kind of drawing me off into the weeds to try and injure me, and it was kind of self-sabotage in a way. Yeah. I was just like, forget that. Like, I'm not doing it anymore. I have to find something else. So I started swimming. But it's just interesting how those kind of compulsive things can come up, especially competitive people. It's not good. So the burpee record, how did you, like, I've done about 50 burpees in my life and I hated every second of it. How did you come to do burpees?
Last year, man, we did a fundraiser for my gym just because we wanted a sauna at the gym. So I was like, all right, just to bloody get everyone a bit motivated. I was like, look, for every $1 you donate, I'll do a burpee. We ended up raising about $500, and I was like, I don't really want to do this, but I'll do it. And so we just done it, man, and like it was bloody hot, and like it was quite tough. But I've been like, that's all we did playing rugby. Was doing burpees, and I've done a lot of CrossFit and stuff like that. I didn't necessarily train too hard for this, and then I was listening to a book. It's called "Can't Hurt Me" by a guy named David Goggins.
Yeah,
don't ever listen
very
to
familiar
that
with it. That's why I started running, man.
You'll be running a marathon next. So yeah, basically he's like, why are you not living where you should be? What's your potential, And I was sort of actually thinking back about shearing. I've been thinking about it for a long time because I don't ever think I've ever pushed my body that hard since I've stopped shearing. Like when you're shearing and you're chasing down a tally, like you're just going for it, and like you're going hard for 2 hours, man, or 8 hours a day, and it's just like it doesn't stop you. But then you go and do like a CrossFit workout that lasts 15 or 20 minutes, and you don't get anywhere near that, Like for some reason it's just different. And I was like, I wonder how I can do this. And I was like, all right, let's have a look at what the burpee world record is. And I worked out, because when I did the 500, I was doing one about every 5 seconds. And the burpee world record is one every 4 seconds. And I was like, hold on. This is where the ego kicked in. And I was like, shit, if I actually trained, I probably could do that. And I was like, And listening to David Goggins, buddy, talk about how he ran an ultra marathon on broken legs, shitting his pants. I was like, okay, now it's not so bad, And and then sort of I decided to join up for that, man. And it's been quite an experience, like just working through it, because there's been a lot of stuff come up, like work, and like my dad passed away and stuff like that. And I was like, is this really worth it? Is it something that I can add on top? And all of those little experiences, man. And in the back of my head, I'm like, shit, I got to do these 900 burpees, and I don't want to fuck it up or anything like that. But it's quite a cool experience to go through, man. And I'm excited to just give it everything. Really, it'll be really cool. So
So has all your training then, is that all focused around burpees?
Nah, man. So over the years, basically, and listening to a lot of different guys, like. Just a side note, there was a guy named Ross Edgley. He actually he just swum around Great Britain lately, and he's a big dude, like big sort of bodybuilder looking guy. But he swam, I think, continuously for 165 days or something in the ocean. And the whole time he was just eating, I think he ate 10,000 calories a day or something like that. He didn't get sick, but one of the things was he was actually doing gymnastic strength training the whole time.
Yep.
And the good thing about that, he was doing that just to keep the integrity of his shoulders so that he didn't get an injury, so that he could keep moving forward. Yeah, so this dude Ross Edgley, he swam around Great Britain, and basically like his pure endurance event, but throughout the whole time he's like, I got to keep the structural integrity of my shoulders, or else I'm going to blow up and get an injury, and basically I won't be able to swim anymore. So what he was doing every day was gymnastic strength training, basically a whole heap of bodybuilding type stuff on a gymnastics rings, just so that the integrity of his shoulder just didn't fall apart. And because he was constantly doing this movement, he just done the opposite movement to basically keep his body in line. And so with the burpees, because I'm doing about, anywhere between, let's say, 200 to 400 push-ups a day or something like that. Like over time, and I guess it comes back to the shearers too, who are constantly like this with the shoulders. Like I know I have to equal that out on the opposite side of my body. So for the first 12 weeks, sort of before Christmas, I'd done a lot of low intensity endurance work because I just wanted to basically decrease my body fat while getting my aerobic capacity up. So just my ability to recover. But I also did the bodybuilding work to strengthen up all my tendons and joints and stuff like that. And now it's a little bit closer. What I'm doing is I've basically got a 4-week block where I'm starting to increase the intensity of my burpees, but I'm also doing 2 days a week of bodybuilding training. But where I focus solely on the backside of my body, it's quite a lot of high reps too. So it's almost like strength endurance type work. But the only reason I'm really doing it is so that I don't blow up my shoulders, and I keep a lot of integrity. Plus, doing like just basic aerobic work, man. And yeah, I'm doing about 2 burpee workouts a week, going a little bit closer to the day. I'll probably be 2 or 3, and then I'll just get a little bit longer, taper off, and then on the day I should be good to go, man. So
yeah, I was going back to David Goggins, because he also did the 24-hour chin-up record.
Yep.
And he had 2 goes at it. And I think one of the amazing things he said was that he did, I can't remember the number, but it was something like 60,000 chin-ups in training for it. Yeah. So to do 4,000, it wasn't the 4,000 chin-ups he did in 24 hours was tough, or 5,000, whatever it was. But the 60,000 leading up to it was the actual hard part. And I think that applies to shearing world records as well. It's like showing up on the day should kind of, all the decisions are made, all the fuck ups have been done, whatever happens, like if you're either prepared or you're not, basically.
100%, man.
It'll be the same for you. I think it's like if you're doing the hard yards, those 900 burpees, they're not going to be easy, but that should be kind of the the easy part to some degree.
I guess, like with the 500, like I know I'm so much fitter now, man, but there's still that like little bit in the back of my head where you're like, shit, this is gonna be terrible. Can I do it? Like, and I think probably the week before, maybe about a month out, I'm just gonna I'll do probably 45 minutes at the record pace, and just have not so much for the training effects, but purely just to say in my head that I can do it. Because I know if I get that far, man, you're not going to give up. So, and I probably won't give up anyway. So it'll be pretty good. A lot of it's mental way, but you got to do the work as well. So.
Yeah. So have you read much? Because something that really interests me is like the doubts that come up, because it's your ego that picks that big challenge, but as I understand it, it's also the ego that gives you all the doubts and feeds all that shitty talk into your brain as well. Have you read much on that subject?
I've done a little bit, like on The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And so basically the future causes anxiety and the past causes depression. And if you can live right in the now, then that's where it is. And it's the only thing that's making you look to the past or the future is the ego. So you've sort of got to drop that to like not either be anxious all the time because you're trying to get somewhere, or you're depressed all the time because you're trying to get away from your past. And it's quite that stuff's quite tough to deal with, man. And I think being a business owner and becoming a parent in the last 2 years, that's something that has come up a hell of a lot for me, eh? Like, I used to be really, really chilled. I think I still am pretty chilled, but just that pressure and that anxiety of like, shit, are we going to make rent this month? Or, like, shit, I got to feed my son now. It's a hell of a lot more pressure. But then if you just take 10 seconds to actually sit down and think, shit, actually, we're doing okay, So, but it's just we put these expectations on ourselves, or, we get a bit, you're looking into the future and you think this is where you should be. And that just causes a bit of anxiety sometimes, eh? And it's definitely something to work on lately, man.
That's actually, there's a word that just came up that I've sort of recognized as a trigger, and it's the word should. Yep. When you think you should be doing something, or you should be this, like for shears, you should be shearing this many because you shore this many last run, you should maintain that same pace, or you should be beating this guy because you've been shearing 5 years and he's only been shearing for 2, or like whatever it is. I reckon the ego and should are pretty closely attached. Is there any, like, maybe from the Shear Easy camps, or even just from your general work, is there any sort of, like, I suppose, beliefs that are common amongst shearers that are sort of holding them back?
I would say more so environment, man. And this probably comes down to beliefs as well, as like, I guess because what we are doing is fairly new. Like, there's people that have been doing it for a while, more so the top guys, and now it's like we get these guys from Shear Easy camps, and sometimes we had a guy come to Kangaroo Island from Western Australia. He's come across the whole bloody country. And it's cool because he's the contractor and he's taking all of the stuff back to his gang. But you get guys come from everywhere. They spend this week with these motivated people. Everyone's trying to be a little bit better. You go back to your gang, and then like you got a group of guys who are like, "Why are you stretching?" Or why are you eating that rabbit food, or like, why are you trying to be better? And like, all they're trying to do is pull you down. But I think that's a hard one to overcome, man, because what you're doing, for a while you are going to be an outlier. You are going to be the odd one out, and that's a tough position to be in, man.
Is that something you kind of warn the guys about when they do come to camp, that they're going to face that kind of thing when they go home?
Yeah, and it's also empowering too, man, because like the way we flip it around is like, now you're a leader in the industry, you guys are the ones that are moving forward, showing everyone a better way. So take that responsibility and that power on the head and just go for it. So
what's been the like the feedback long term from those camps? Like, have you had guys come into the camp and then get into that next level like they want to?
Yeah, definitely. There's been
what's been some of the results?
Well, like at the start of the Shear Easy camp, like we make everyone sit down and write 12-month goals. And it's ridiculous, man, like how accurate those goals become, like these guys that what we do too is like, so to say they've got a goal, they want to buy a house. And it's like, they've been wanting to buy a house for ages. It's like, all right, let's break down how you're going to get a house. And then so the first month, all right, I've got to go set up a bank account. The next month, I've got to save $3,000. The next month, and like actually stepping it out and planning it out. And then, a year down the track, guys like, hey, man, I just want to let you know that goal I set at the Shear Easy to buy a house, I just brought my house. And, that's pretty cool, man. It's bloody rewarding for myself and the other coaches, I know that, but it's just cool to see, man, what can happen when you get a bit of clarity around where you want to go. It's massive.
Yeah, I suppose that's
a few guys that are gone next level with shows and stuff like that too.
But it's also about having the right goals that kind of motivate you. And like the common one, like if you go and look at fitness on YouTube, you're going to get everything about biceps and abs. And like that's kind of like how good or how big you think your biceps are or how good your abs look is kind of all to do with how you feel on the day when you're looking in the mirror. So it can also, like, it can just be completely demotivating, as motivated as it may be. But if you've got like a a goal to get to a certain, I don't know, like a certain level of core strengths, you're gonna have those same attributes, but you're also gonna be fucking strong, like, and you can't deny that, you know. So it's like picking the right goals. Do you coach the guys through picking the goals? Like if a guy said,
if they need help. So like we use like a SMART goal template. So it's like specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So someone might be like, oh, I want to save some money. It's like, okay, well, how much money do you want to save, and why do you want to save it? You know, so it's more about like, I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. We're just here to, I guess, help make it a little bit clearer and show you the path. And I think that's what a coach does. Like I could say, all right, go and save $100,000 this year, train every single day, eat every single day, and, you know, and never drink, do whatever you got. But people aren't going to do that, man. They're going to do whatever they want to do. So it's about making them see the clarity and figure out the exact path they need to take to reach where they want to go. That's more important, man. So.
Yeah, right. So just to go back to actually recovery, because I've got a few notes down here that I wanted to talk about, and I'll just rattle off the list.
Yeah, cool.
I've written down foam rolling, ultrasound, sleep, which we've covered, fasting, yoga, maybe Pilates, but also ice baths and cold showers, because I know you do the Wim Hof method. So do you want to explain to the listeners about Wim Hof and what he's been doing?
Yeah, cool, man.
What you doing with that?
Yeah, so Wim Hof, I was lucky enough. One of my mentors is a guy named Keegan Smith. He's been the strength and conditioning coach for the Sydney Roosters the 2 times they've actually won the championship. So bloody top guy, but the reason that they've won is because they bring in this holistic approach. And I guess he introduced me to Wim Hof. And the first time I seen Wim Hof, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast. I was listening to it. I was like, man, this guy just had too many bongs, it was off his tree. And then I was like, you start listening and then you start to realize that everything he's saying is like they've tested it in universities. And, they've done so much research on it, and there's so much science behind it. And it's not just this magic voodoo stuff, but it's also just purely life experience. And he's gone through this life experience and now they're proving it. But basically what he is, he's the Iceman. So he's got multiple world records of just doing random stuff. I think he swam under an ice sheet on one breath for like 200 meters or something crazy like that. He was meant to only do half of it, but his cuticles froze over and he couldn't see where he was going. So he got lost in the ice and he just kept going. Eventually someone pulled him out, but it was like... And then, but basically he uses this breathing technique, which on the surface level, what it does is basically puts more oxygen in your brain than you've ever had. So it increases all sorts of stuff like adrenaline and certain things in the body. But what it does is basically supercharges your cell. So for example, one of the things we do is we do 3 rounds of this breathing technique. Then you hold your breath. So you can hold your breath for anywhere up to 2 to 5 minutes quite comfortably, and you'll feel quite good. And then on the last round, what we've done at the Shear Easy camps is we make everyone do as many push-ups as they can on just the one breath. And these guys are like, I haven't done a push-up in 10 years, and they'll bang out 40 or 50 reps on one breath, you know. And it's pretty cool, man. And I sort of just use that as an example of like half an hour ago, you never heard of this, and now you're doing more than you've ever done in the last 10 years. What else don't you know you can do, you know?
Yeah,
like there's a lot of stuff like that. Like there's a lot of science in how it helps your immunity and stuff, but I think it's just purely tapping into the mindset, man, and realizing we're capable of so much more. We just need to figure out how to do it. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So does that have any, like, obviously that's like you actually introduced me to him from one of your posts like a year or so ago. I was like, I saw you doing the push-ups and I looked into it, and then I also watched him on Joe Rogan. So he completely blew me away. I haven't followed up on the practice of breathing, but the cold showers are a big thing for me now. Like especially if I'm feeling a bit low and like
man.
procrastinating a bit, they actually just sharpen me up and make me do it. And I was actually really proud to. I went on like a camping trip, and there was a cold shower there, and the other guys there jumped under it, and they were like fucking screaming, and like they're just like acting up, like they were going under for like 10 seconds, and I could get under it, and my breathing never changed. Like I didn't. It was just I just completely relaxed, and it's amazing like what your body, like I think what kind of got me was like when we go under the cold, we tend to like tense up, and it stops our body from adapting.
Yeah.
And it's just like this, it's almost like a metaphor for everything you want to do, where you just want to relax into it. And it's the same with yoga. It's the same with shearing. Like I know when I was shearing, if I was racing, I'd tense up. You mentioned it earlier in the traps. I'd tense up and my shoulders would lift. I'd stop moving my feet, and it's like just relaxing and you can see that like with Lou Brown shearing, he was just so relaxed the whole day.
Yeah.
That just seems to be like where performance is in that relaxed kind of state.
Yeah, well then you're in a flow state, eh?
Yeah.
Like you're not thinking anymore. You're just doing, and
yeah,
that's where I think any top performer, man, in any sport, like they don't have to think because their body's perfectly in shape, and their skills just take over. You know, you don't have to think anymore. You just do it, and that's where the best of the best is so good.
Yep. That's actually where I've struggled for more than 10 years is like in shearing competitions where I completely freeze up. That's the other place I freeze up. Like I either go completely locked up and my hand cramps up in 10 minutes of shearing, or the alternative is I completely relax and I don't switch on.
Yeah.
And it's either one or the other, and it's like it's been like really frustrating for me that it's I can shear in the sheds and like be way out in front, and guys see my shearing singlets, like my competition singlets, and go, oh, how many of you won? It's like fucking none. Like I'm usually dead last, you know what I mean? And so that kind of relaxing but getting that flow state's been something I'm chasing, like, and I just don't know if I've got it. How would you coach a guy like that?
A lot of it's just coming to the breathing. Yeah, just coming back to breathing, Just focus on the breath. A lot of people, like, when you're tensing up, you're probably forgetting to breathe.
Yep.
And then if you're too relaxed, you just need to pump yourself up a bit more, So that's you get this a lot with powerlifters or like any strength sport as well. Like some people need to be like super, super pumped up or else they won't lift it. But other people, if you do that, they'll completely fuck up everything. So it's about finding your middle ground. And like say you go into a comp, and this comes back to the self-awareness. So this could take you a year to figure out, where you're like, okay, every comp I'm going to go to, I'm going to sit down afterwards and have a 5-minute diary or something like that. And if you're in the comp and you're like, oh shit, that one I was really, really tense. Next time, just maybe do like a 5-minute meditation before and allow yourself to calm down, and then just focus on the breathing. And then after your comp's done, just be like, okay, was I a little bit more relaxed, or was I too relaxed? And then eventually, like, that's something we teach in the goal setting, is like, you just reflect, go back and always reflect on what you've done. Because you could spend a whole year of just not even reflecting back on it and thinking about it, and you're just doing the same thing. But if you spend 5 minutes, it comes back to like that cue, routine, reward. Like you spend 5 minutes just reflecting on it, you can actually figure out a process. And a lot of the times you'll be able to figure out yourself, but the faster way is probably to get a coach of some sort and just ask someone, like reach out. I'm sure the guys like Blackie or any of the Shear Easy sort of coaches, or pretty much any top shearers, man, they're happy to help. Like I remember Daniel McIntyre, he was sort of talking about his championship run, and the one thing he said, he this whole time he just couldn't get there, and the one thing he figured out was the whole block he was just trying to beat Shannon Warnes the whole time, and then he somehow just shut that out, and that was the time he actually beat him. Instead of trying to beat him, he he just beat him, eh? And it was pretty cool, man. He said that was the number
Yeah.
one block after he got rid of that. But that took some soul searching and a bit of reflecting, and we all go there with that sort of stuff, man. Like I've had that many injuries and stuff, and just trying to figure out piece by piece what's going on and different things, along the way. And now I've pretty much put the pieces of the puzzle together, and it's over time, like, I still don't know anything, and like in 20 years, I'll be like, shit, I didn't know a bloody thing, But as long as you're aware and constantly reflecting, man, and I guess that loops back to that 4-year plan. Like, if you think you can figure out everything you need to know to break a world record in 6 months, good on you. But like, if you give yourself enough time, like, there's things you'll never ever think about. Like it could be, there could be a drought one year, or like there could be anything, man, that comes up, and it's just purely like along the way thinking about, like, taking notes, figuring out different stuff, and eventually you could probably attack anything. And I think that's the level it's getting to now, man, is we got all these masters and all these experts out there that, have all this knowledge and they're prepared to share it, which is pretty cool. And that's why you see these tallies now, they're probably only just getting started, man, if we look at it. Like, the level of Shear is it's getting very, very close, but there's a lot of stuff that is making these tallies achievable now. So
so like a guy like Lou, I think he trained for 12 months.
Yep.
So is the expectation that, and I think this is probably true, that the training periods are just going to get longer and longer to break that record? Like,
not,
you know what
so
I mean? Like,
much. So like, for example, say you're someone who's done that groundwork, you need a shorter amount of time to peak.
Yeah.
But you want to sort of always maintain. But say like you said at the start, someone who's never trained before, you're going to need a longer period of time. Like the amount of training I've done now, like for me to go and switch from purely weightlifting to a burpee world record, I don't need that much time because of the base that I've built. And like someone like Lou, he's actually been training for a lot longer. He's done probably 5 years or something. Like, had time off and that during that time, but then to spend that 12 months of fine tuning, it's made a huge difference. So
I think there's something in, like, I know that from exercise I've done in the past, and when it hasn't worked, or like when I've fallen off the cart, that's all sort of something, like the experience I've gotten from that I can now apply with my training now. And I can recognize, for instance, the 5K run, I can recognize that that's not working for me, and like discard it. And I know that from previous training regimes I've followed that didn't work. Like, they worked, they were hard, and like I wasn't recovering, but I know that they were fueling my ego at the same time. And so it's like having that, like, constantly not just falling off the cart, but jumping back on and keeping going without having like for me, if I wanted to do a record 4 years ago, my limitation was that I said I had to do it in 8 months. It wasn't that I could do it or couldn't do it. It's that I put a time limit on it. Like, I was going to do it when I wasn't ready. And try and luck my way out of it or something, and hope that the team of people came around me when, like, in all honesty, my kids weren't in the best place. Their mother, like, we've split up 2 years ago. We weren't like a cohesive unit. And so I know now that it completely would have fallen apart. Like, it would have derailed 100%. There's no way it was going to happen. And it's like a lot of guys, I wonder if they're going to take that step up, if they thought about those things. Like, the extra training means less time for your family. Like, it is a selfish endeavor, but if you've been and like, I think I was probably a taker for most of my life, not a giver. And it's, if you've got that mentality, are you comfortable asking people for help, if you know what I mean? Like, because you haven't sort of paid it forward. And it was something like Dwayne Black's story from his last live feed about helping out, like his first world record that he helped out at. He was out in the pens catching, or penning up sheep. And it's like, that was pretty powerful, because it's like the first step for him in record shearing was actually helping.
Just being
And
part
that's
of it.
where, yeah, and that's where he got the bug. And I think that'd probably be like a good starting place for anyone that wants to do a record to
Yep.
start in that, like, show up at a record and help out, or get on the team and help someone else achieve your dream. And then you can, you're part of the process then, aren't you? And
100%, man. And I guess if like adding that into that 4-year plan, like that can be part of your plan. So
yep,
every year you're going to pick, all right, I'm going to go to Lou Brown's record, or I'm going to go to Muddy's record, or like these different records, you're going to go and sort them out. It could be that you're going to do all the shows possible so you can get used to performing under pressure, and just little things like that. And it could be, all right, I'm going to go and spend a month with Dwayne Black and pick his brains, or I'm going to go over to New Zealand and share with Rod Sutton, or
yeah,
like those are the things that they all add up. If you can go spend time with, when I was sharing, I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time down at Dion Morales, and the amount of knowledge that man's got is incredible.
yeah,
And the cool thing about him too, like he's just purely loves it, man. He's one of the greatest shearers of all time. And he's just purely wants people to be better at it, so he's happy to help. And being around that and realizing how humble these guys are, and it sort of gives you that mentality too, I think.
yeah,
And then it could be like, all right, I'm going to go spend some time with a sports team, a high-end sports team, and just getting yourself around people who have done exceptional things. And the more time you're around those people too, you actually start to realize, shit, they're not too different from me. They're just doing different things. Yeah. And I think it's a big one too with family, man, and especially with kids. I know at times, like I feel guilty as well. That I should be spending time with my kid, or stuff like that. There's that external pressure in the back of my mind, but I also know the reason I'm doing it is because I want to show my son that like it is possible and stuff like that as well.
yeah.
So as long as your reasons for doing something are true, I think that'll get you for a long period of time. And if it's just purely like your reason is like, I want to break a world record, you probably fail. Because that's purely just ego. And when it gets bloody tough, you're going to be, David Goggins says, like, there's a point that'll come when you're asking why you're here. And unless you can answer that with full honesty and a deep, deep reason why you're doing it, you're going to stop. So
Yeah.
it's going to get to
I'd add to that and say that it's not going to be on record day.
Yeah.
It's going to be long before record. If you don't have the right reason, it's going to be a long time before record day.
Yep.
Yeah.
You'll find a reason to not do it, So.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So it's something I actually learned about recently. I've never tried it though, but do you know much about ultrasound therapy?
Not too much, man.
Yeah.
Probably more around the physios and stuff like that.
Yeah. I've just been looking at it on YouTube, but it seems it's, if you like, myofascial release with the foam roll. Yeah. So from what I was reading, that's not technically true. Like, it's not, foam rolling is not really myofascial release, which is, myofascia is like it's like a substance that's kind of superficially between your skin and your muscle, and also internal in your muscle, that helps it all slide.
Yep.
And they've done studies on rats that they don't think will transfer to humans, where they applied the equivalent of tons of force to the rat's muscle and released the myofascia. Hang on. No. And yet there's a lot of guys going around saying that foam rolling is kind of the cure, but they've found that ultrasound actually is. And the myofascia, if you haven't done any recovery in your life, which I didn't for years, you probably need some sort of work. And ultrasound seems to offer a lot of the goods. So I've been reading quite a bit about that. But also, again, back to Wim Hof, like, he does do a lot of work with ice and with cold showers that he recommends. Have you done much with that with the shearers?
Yeah, man. We just, it's more, once again, going back to the mindset sort of thing. Like, the first time we ran the ice baths was at Dubbo, and I was sort of planting seeds the whole week. I was like putting in their heads that this ice bath's going to be pretty horrible. And everyone sort of like the whole week freaking out talking about it. And then we got to it, and I said, so what do you guys think this all about? And they're like, oh, it helps you recover, it helps your muscles and stuff like that. I said, it's all purely to do with your mind. When you're in this ice bath, it's going to be extremely uncomfortable. You're going to want to get out, but you're going to stay in there and you're going to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep.
I guess the science behind ice bath and stuff, it can help reduce inflammation in that. But they also reckon too, like if you were strength training and trying to build, say, a little bit of lean muscle, you actually need that inflammation to get the gains. So having that ice, if it's reducing it, you're actually going to slow down that process. But say you had a massive day and you need to recover fast, it can help reduce the swelling and the inflammation. But it also it calluses the mind, man. It makes you makes you get used to being comfortable while you're uncomfortable, man. So
yeah,
and that's more what it comes down to, especially like guys who want to do records or something like that. From what I've heard, like I haven't experienced it firsthand, but when you're at that threshold, it's hurting, and you're gonna be out of state here, So, and the guys that have been successful, the first record we done was two guys, Calvin and Cole. It was an 8-hour record, and basically I remember the second sheet, like Calvin's hand was sort of looked like it cramped up, and I was like, it doesn't look too good, and I didn't think anything of it, but second run comes out, he just cramps up, like terrible cramp, and he basically shore for 6 hours with severe cramp. By the end of it, his eyes were swollen shut, and the amount of guts that man had to carry on, man, like there was no stop, man, and like it was incredible, man, how much pain he endured. And I'm pretty sure he got faster the last run, so his fitness and his ticker was just there, and he was just comfortable being in that pain. And it was at the end he said something pretty cool, and like he and Cole were like, fuck man, that was fucking hard, and Calvin goes, I just didn't want to stop for you, bro. And Cole's like, oh, I was thinking the exact same thing. So when it came down to it, they weren't doing it for themselves, they were doing it for each other. They both knew they were hurting, and they were like, they just kept going for each other, Didn't matter how much they were going through. So that was a crazy experience, man. It was
pretty
cool.
Incredible. I've suffered from cramps my whole career and sort of linked it to magnesium.
Yeah.
But is that common in the shearing industry? Like a lot of cramps?
Yeah, I think
I actually don't, because I don't see it on the board that often. I don't see it on the board as regularly as I got it.
Yeah.
But I don't see people doing much about it either, if you know what I mean.
There's two trainer thoughts out at the moment, and one of it's like a chemical imbalance can cause cramps. So say I think, and like I'm not 100% certain on this, but it could be the fact that like the lactic acid accumulation plus the acid balance in your body is out. So things like magnesium, which is actually going to help reduce that. That's why it can help, and you're putting the electrolytes back into your system so the muscles can fire properly. The other one is that the muscle's just not used to working that hard, so it just locks up, and it's just not prepared for that. And a lot of that too can come down to like nervous tension and stuff like that. So if you're like, say you're doing like a really, really heavy deadlift or Olympic lift, you're using your nervous system. So if you're putting all of your effort into something and then that's trying to contract the muscle, and that muscle hasn't done that before, it's just going to lock up over time. And I guess that's the two train of thoughts. But yeah, a lot of it I think probably would come back down to those basic habits, man, of just having your nutrition on point, making sure you're getting enough veggies, getting your electrolytes, and getting as much as you can so that your body, your internal systems are good. Then your body can do its work, So
did you track it back to anything with Calvin, like the cause of the cramps?
No, we literally couldn't figure it out, man. I guess what I learned from that too would have been really cool was actually probably being in contact a lot more beforehand.
Yeah.
Leading up to it and potentially tracking the weight. Like there's potential that like he was a little bit overtrained and potentially like a little bit underweight. And that can make a big difference. But yeah, at this stage, like it's purely a guess. And what I learned from that is like you got to be on this stuff 6 months before. Like if you go into a record day and you're 5 kilos lighter than where you should be, that's going to make a big difference, man. You look at Lou, like Lou was like his muscles were full. Same with like Matt Smith. Same with like Stacey A. Like all those guys, they're not skinny. They're actually quite solid dudes, and you can see they got those reserves there. And if you don't have that there, it's going to wash away pretty quick. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's it's something else that got touched on with Dwayne and Matt on Saturday. They a guy asked about the ketogenic diet. Have you had much to do with that?
Yeah, like with nutrition, man, my I guess philosophy on it is like whatever works best for you works best for you. So there's no miracle diet, man. But like for example, pretty much if you're getting your veggies and your protein, it's just whether you feel better eating carbs or fat from there.
Yep.
In general, most shearers are probably going to feel better using carbs because they're a lot more easier, readily available to use for energy. And fat is because you got to break it down. But say someone's got, like it really doesn't matter, man. A lot of people are using the keto diet for fat loss, but the rules for fat loss are the same no matter what diet on. If you're eating less than you're burning, you're going to lose weight. So it's just purely energy in versus energy out, but it's whatever you can stick to and whatever you feel best on. That's the best diet. So yeah. So there are some benefits to having high fat, but it's all down to the person as well, man. So.
Yeah, I found it. I agree 100%. I never would have done the ketogenic diet, and I only started it 2 weeks ago. But I started cleaning up my diet and realized that I was having like tuna salad wraps every day for lunch, like just a tortilla type wrap. And realized if I take away the wrap, that's the ketogenic meal, meaning it's high fat, almost no carbs, and just veggies, like just salad. And I was like, should I? Yeah, I was like, if I could do it for one day.
On the bread, So
yeah. And I was like, I'll just try it for one day, and I tried it for one day, and then the second day I was like, I'll do it again, and that means just having bacon and eggs for breakfast, and again the same lunch, and I got these like crushing headaches that crippled me, and I was moody as hell, and that just kind of made me more determined to kick carbs. Like I don't like anything that feels like addiction. I'm just like, I want to cut it out. And
I honestly think, man, like I went to a nutrition guy a couple of weeks ago. There's a guy named Martin McDonald, and he's an English dude. And he's basically like, these are all my degrees. These are all the celebrities I helped to Photoshop. And he's done everything. And he's like, what it comes down to is like, whatever you can stick to, that's what it is. Man. So it's like, I think probably like if someone was starting a new diet, like if say someone was to come into the gym and tell me, hey, I want to do the keto diet, I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say, all right, let's use this as a learning experience. Get good at tracking your food, get good at figuring out what you're going to have, figure out what's good to eat. And then if you feel good, we'll keep doing it. If you don't, we'll change it up a little bit, So a good quote I heard was like, this is not a diet, it's a learning experience. And that's what it comes to, man. So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I agree. Like, and I wouldn't, anyone who's interested in the keto diet, I would not advise starting it during the shearing season because it's torture.
Yeah. and it literally all depends, man. Like, say you're a bigger dude with a bit more fat, like you might be completely fine, man. Like you look at like Maldives or Polynesians and stuff. During the winter, we would have. Like my dad's side of the family, I'm actually Māori, so during the winter there would have been a lot more higher fat diet, like just purely meat and fats. So maybe through times it's probably okay to eat, but it's going to be hard to do a big physical day on a keto diet. Like you probably feel your gut might feel a bit yuck, but after a while, it's all relative.
Yeah. So the basic diet advice for shearers, from what I heard earlier, is eat more.
Yeah. For
I
most
had the
part.
feeling, yeah, I had the feeling a few years ago when I tracked calories for like 3 months, I realized I almost couldn't eat enough, and I
Yeah.
was catching up. If you look at it over a week, I was actually catching up on the weekends by binge eating, and
Yeah.
that's when I was always at a deficit, so not eating enough during the week, and
Yeah.
then Saturday, Sunday, my calories would balance out without any sort of. I didn't have to consciously eat. My body just caught up then,
Yeah.
just through
We're
kind
fucking
of
smart, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
We're
pretty
very, very smart.
incredible.
Yeah.
But
It's the
and I
same with the
kind of
course.
challenged myself. I challenged myself then to eat proactively. So every morning when you wake up, you're burning calories while you sleep. So I had a 24/7 tracker,
Yep.
and I'd burn like 600 calories by the time I woke up. So I had to bang in 600 calories, and then I'd burn like 1400 by the time Smoko came around. So I'd have to put in like
Yeah.
2000 calories
Yeah.
to get Smoko, and tried doing it that way. And it seemed to work pretty well for me anyway. That was but took a lot of, like having a 2 liter smoothie every morning full of like oats and protein powder and
Yeah.
bananas and all that sort of shit. It took me 40 minutes to drink it. And again, like
Yeah.
what can you stick to is like, I could not stick to that. I did like 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Felt pretty good, but mentally it was
Yeah.
just tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And like what you said, like the 2,000 calories by Smoko, a lot of the guys on the Shear Easy Cam, man, they weren't even getting 2,000 calories for the day.
Yeah,
So
right.
and like yeah, and going back to like a lot of guys are like, oh, I can't put on weight or that sort of thing over the day. In your head, you think you're eating a lot because you probably feel full, but you're probably getting nowhere near enough, eh? You know,
Yeah.
just having little tricks like you might. That's where your fats can come in, like adding in
Yep.
seeds or your nuts and stuff like that, because they are calorie dense. It's quite easy to, a handful of nuts is going to be quite a heap of calories, and it's a good way to get food in. Or
Yep.
like
Yep.
little protein balls and stuff like that can be pretty good as well.
And that can track into mood as well. Like if you're feeling yourself getting a bit angry all the time, you could just be calorie deficient, like your
Just
brain's
hungry.
running out of fuel. Yeah, just fucking
Yeah,
hungry.
yeah, 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 man.
So yeah, a handful of peanuts can kind of fix that, or a Snickers bar, whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
But
100%, man.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, the other thing that I brought this up earlier before we started, but you've spent over 60 grand on training in the last couple of years. What's some of the training you've done?
yeah, man. So I've gone into like mentorships. One of them cost me 15 grand just for a year mentorship.
Yep.
So I spent a heap on that, and then just all the courses that I've done over time, man. Plus all there's just thousands and thousands of dollars on courses and stuff like that have been really good. But like it's stuff like being to Tony Robbins and stuff like that.
Yep.
Going to see Wim Hof or just doing pretty much everything I possibly can, man, to I guess improve myself. And that's something that I guess we try to get across with the Shear Easy Camps. You might be spending a week off work and it might cost you $500, but it's going to set you up. You'll make 10 times that for the rest of your life quite easy, man. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
So how, like, a guy like Tony Robbins is obviously pretty famous, and he does spend a fair bit of time in Australia, I think. You might even come here a couple of times a year.
Yeah,
What would you recommend that for shearers as a way of,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
100%.
incredible.
Because it's going to just completely take out, like, whatever your mindset is now, it'll completely shift it. And
Yeah.
you'll just be like, okay, like, for a start, you'll either put up a block and think, oh, this guy's full of shit. Or
Yep.
you're like, okay, maybe he's onto something here. And it'll just lead you down a path, man. And yeah, he's spent time with all the top people in the world, man, like the presidents. He's crazy. So 100%,
Yeah.
man. I think Lou done the landmark course, and that was
Oh yeah.
I think speaking to him a while ago, that was one of the reasons that made him actually want to do the records. So
Yeah.
yeah, just
Was that
those
with
personal
Tony?
developments. No, it's I'm not too sure. Like it's a personal development course.
Yeah.
But basically, they make you go into your why and stuff like that, and you get some pretty powerful results. The Terry brothers, the younger ones, they went to it just before one of the Shear Easy courses, and they said it was the best thing they've ever done. And I
Yeah.
guess
Right.
that's Lou went to it as well, and just things like that can just shift the way you think is incredible. Like it might cost you that bit of money up front, but down the track, you'll be 10 years ahead of where you are. Like, I was talking to the guy that I paid 15 grand for on that mentorship. And I said to him, man, I was like, look, you've put me 10 years ahead of where I should be. The stuff that I've been like being lucky enough to meet that guy that, was the coach of the Chinese Olympic team. I got to train with Sonny Bill Williams. Like,
Yeah.
you don't get to learn that stuff, man. It's pretty lucky. If I didn't know that stuff, it's crazy. Like, I've just been handed 10 years of their knowledge and their experience, and just it's been really good. Every dollar
Yeah.
you spend, you're going to get back 10 times over, in my opinion. So,
And that was another thing that really interests me, is that you were a shearer for 8 years and seemed like you enjoyed it, and
yep.
then went on to go coaching. What was the reason for that and the transition there?
Yeah, that was a good story, man. I was sort of thinking about this yesterday. Like, when I started shearing, it was purely like, it was just by luck that the old man goes, oh, hey, I got you a week's work at Christmas time. And at the
Yep.
time, I was being a little shit, doing bugger all, really. And it was $18 an hour to jump on the press at the time, and this is like huge money in New Zealand. And then so I did that, and then it was just like playing rugby every day. So I was like, it was just a competition, and just fell in love with it, man. I love the hard work, and I love the fact that you could be almost playing a sport every single day.
Yeah.
And then when I got a chance to shear, I was like, man, this is the jam, And I sort of went hard with it, and I was going around all the shows and stuff like that. And something in the back of my mind, people were like, man, shearing's good money. And at the time, I was like, the day I do it for money is the day I won't do this again, because I purely just did it for the sport, and I absolutely loved it. And then it was sort of like my body was starting to hurt a bit, sort of stuff like that. And then I was trying to make some money, and then I came over to Australia, and I was like, shit, I'm just doing this for the money at the moment, actually. Like, I lost a little bit of love for it. And I think one of the biggest reflections looking back on it now, man, I just overworked myself. Like, I didn't have a day off in probably a year. Like, none of the recovery stuff, none of the stuff I know now. And I think purely I'm a workaholic, man, and I've had to really tame that down in my business, because I can work myself 7 days a week for months if I want to. And I'm lucky that shearing has given me that work ethic, but it's not sustainable. And so at the time, like, my hip was bloody sore. Like, I was just like, and then I looked around and I was like, is this what I really want to be doing for the next 10 years? And I was like, I'm working way too hard. And I was like, nah, it's time to go and see something else, man. And and that was that. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So what, out of all the things you could have picked, coaching was where you ended up?
I've always
What
been
drew you
into
there?
it. Like, I did when I was shearing, I did my PT certs back in New Zealand. So this was
Yep.
I was about 20 or 21 at the time, and my boss goes to me, he's like, you're not going to do that, you're going to be a shearer. And I was like, okay. So I ended up going way bloody shearing merinos up the high country. And like, even when I was younger, man, we had a gym when we were 16. Like, we started a gym, and I've just always enjoyed it, I guess. And then it's always just been a passion of mine, and just basically got into it. And the more I do it, man, is like, I just love it. It's what I love doing. I love seeing people get better. And at times it can be a curse, because like, I do care so deeply, and I know that if I know what I do can help so many people, but at times, like, they got to help themselves as well, man. And that can be quite frustrating.
Yeah.
And that can get you down as a coach, man, because all you want to do is help people, and if they don't take it, and then you beat yourself up over it, because you're like, shit, I can't help this person, but really they got to help themselves. And it's something I'm actually learning a lot lately. Like I've just cut down. So for the last 2 years, having my gym, hey man, for the last 2 years, I've basically run my gym where I've worked 60-hour weeks every single day, just purely because I absolutely love it. And lately I've said, nah, bugger it. I'm cutting it back to 3 days a week. People are going to pay me more. Because I'm going to start practicing what I preach, man. I'm going to start working a little bit less, taking a little bit more care of myself. And shit, it's made a huge difference, man. I feel like bloody 10 years younger, eh? It's awesome. So
Yeah.
And that's
letting go of,
journey, man.
Yeah, that's like
Just
letting go of the ego as well, and like admitting that the rules do apply to you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And it's also that fear too, man. Like, I'm like, shit, if I stop doing this, I'm going to lose all my clients. And I'm like,
yeah,
well, actually, my health is more important. You know, I'm putting everyone else before me. And really, if I'm not healthy and I'm not well, then no one's going to benefit. So I was like, all right, well, if everyone leaves, they leave, bugger it. I'll go. I'm fine, you know. And no, it's actually been really good. I've actually been able to help more because I'm helping myself more. So yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. Is so like you got clients or people that you're trying to help, and when they're not taking the basic advice or for whatever reason, and I think like that, and you know, like you do sort of judge yourself. I've tried to help friends before and I've stopped doing it because I realize it's kind of got a lot to do with me as well, wanting to help them, and it's kind of it can be a little bit unhealthy, like always wanting to step in. And but then there's guys like Tony Robbins that can just like break people apart right before your eyes, and you think, you know, why can't I do that?
Yep.
Does that sort of get you a bit?
Yeah, but you look, someone's probably paid a couple grand to go see Tony Robbins. Yeah. So they're open and receptive. Plus he's a master, man. It's like, we used one of Tony Robbins' techniques one day, and it was incredible, man. Like this girl, she was constantly overeating, and she just couldn't figure out why she was doing it. We used one of Tony Robbins' methods. It's basically what you link pain and pleasure to determines your actions, and your actions determine your life. So what we had to figure out, what was she avoiding because of the pain, and what pleasure was she getting by avoiding that pain? And it turned out, man, that this is a crazy. Basically, what happened is when she was really young, her dad died, and from that day, she actually started using food as a comfort eater, so that it could actually comfort her. And then ever since then, every time there's been an uncomfortable situation come up, she's like, shit, I've been eating this food. And she's like, I cannot believe that was my trigger this whole time. And this is like 15 years after her dad died. And then from that day, when she figured that out, we worked out as like, okay, so what's the worst pain? And she's like, I don't want to die young like my dad. And I said to her, okay, would your dad be proud of you knowing that you're living this healthy lifestyle? And she's like, yeah, 100%. So what we'd done is we'd switched the pain of her avoiding her dad's death by dealing with it and actually giving some pleasure to it, where she knows she's making her dad proud, and avoiding the pain of being unhealthy and dying early. And she hasn't binged eat since, man. It's fucking crazy. So
right.
And I was like, I had no idea what we were going to come up against. I thought people were just going to be like, this is a waste of time. And then it was just crazy, man. I was like, okay, you got to be careful with stuff like that, because obviously it is going to dig up some holes. There were people that were doing, and they're like, oh, I've got nothing. And they're the people that are like resistant. Everyone's got something, man. We've all got something. You know, those people are like, no, I'm not doing this. And they're probably the ones that need it the most, but they're not ready for it.
That was me, man.
Yeah, I've been there, man. I'm still there. So we always got blocks, man, and we always got to keep working on it. And the ego gets in the way, especially for men. It's just the way it is. I guess women, it's insecurity, and men, it's probably the ego. You know, is our two biggest weaknesses. But yeah,
cool. I've definitely not covered everything, but my kids are getting hungry, so.
No worries, man.
Yeah. Let's finish it up there, eh?
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Right. What about, so if anyone wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, man, just yell out on Facebook, either find me or Shear Fitness. Yeah, and they can find us on there, man. Got a few videos and that on YouTube if anyone wants to check out some stuff as well. So
Yeah, sweet.